Welcome to the Hediye podcast, where we discuss anything and everything that helps you improve and live your best life. My name is Hediye. I'm your host, and my guest today is Jim Curtis, author, keynote speaker, and he was also named Top 100 Pharma Voices and Pharma Voices Top 100 Influential and Inspirational Leader in Health. Jim, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here. It's funny when I hear those things, it seems like another life ago that I was doing those things. It's funny how we kind of step into a new person, as we grow older.
I know, and I was researching you to find out what's the best way to introduce you, and I learned we have very similar background, which I am very excited to talk about. So I understand you have years of experience in health, and also like leadership in health, so diverse background in health and also business, and experience with digital health platforms such as WebMD
Yeah.
and Everyday Health, which is so exciting because I also developed a health platform. I don't know
Which
if
one?
it's called Prompt Health. It's a directory of wellness providers across Canada and connects people to different health services based on their needs.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So I also spent my entire career in healthcare for 25 years and ended up doing an MBA, switched to the business side and leadership roles in health. And what I developed this platform at the beginning of pandemic. And as I got into building it and advertising it, I got into advertising it. I thought, I'm going to talk about it myself because people trust people, not, logos. And that's how I got into doing what I'm doing right now.
I love that. That's something I talk about a lot, that we can step into something new at any time. We're really like one decision away from an entirely new life. And
Absolutely.
I've had five new lives in my career and in my life. I was a trader on Wall Street.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, yeah. And then um, I decided to go work for a company that I was trading in health. And it became WebMD, and we brought that public, and then we started Everyday Health, and then we started Remedy Health. And then I led the largest health coaching school in the world, um, called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And after all that, public companies and venture-backed companies, I realized that I still love health and wellness, but there was something so much bigger than that, so much bigger than the effort to accumulate millions of people to get pharmaceutical companies to spend money. And the bigger thing was actually smaller. So that's the law of polarity. The bigger thing was smaller. And what that means is for me is that when I work with people in small groups or one to one, I find I have more purpose, more passion, make a bigger impact, feel more energy, more connection to spirit. And so that's what I've started doing.
Amazing. So your journey, first of all, as I mentioned to you before, I started this series of conversations with people who inspire me, and I love their voices, and I think you're one of them, definitely. I love when you show up on my Instagram or TikTok, and I'm like, and it inspires me. I was very interested to learn about your background and what brought you here today. And I would love to know more about that. What motivated you to do what you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, I guess I had an illness that really motivated me. So, and then ignoring that illness really motivated me. Excuse me. So the illness motivated me and ignoring the illness motivated me. And with that said, because when I ignored it, it got worse. And I tried to pretend like nothing happened. Tried to pretend that I didn't dislike myself because of my illness. And when I started to step into that acceptance and love, then I started to do something completely different. So I had a lesion on my spinal cord, which was undiagnosed. I don't know how it happened, but it created havoc, and I was sick for years and years and years, all the way to the point where I could barely walk. And I had to go through a decade trying to figure out how to get better. And because I was always the strongest, and the most outgoing in the room, to then lose your physical, your kinetic connection, uh, threw me into a tailspin. And I really was shaming myself for being sick and not being able to be strong and not being able to run and not being able to do all those things. So, when you shame yourself, you try to avoid it because that's painful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I avoided it and I got into terrible relationships that would never work. I became a workaholic, setting up these companies and working, 90, 100 hours a week. I started eating poorly, drinking too much, doing everything that was bad for me. And if there was anybody who was struggling in a wheelchair, had some physical disability, clearly a mental health issue, I thought I stayed away from them like the plague. Couldn't couldn't stomach being around a person like that. And then, like it happens with most people, when you hit your kind of rock bottom,
Mm-hmm.
start to make a change. And I hit a rock bottom. I was so sick, so unhappy, so in pain. Just my suffering. We all have this homeostasis,
Mm-hmm.
and homeostasis, just like our body keeps temperature and our blood flow, we have highs and lows, and our mind allows us to kind of go in the middle. Our autonomic nervous system allows homeostasis in the middle. When we get too hot, we sweat. When we get too cold, we shiver. And so sometimes your homeostasis for your belief system or what you're worth can be really low.
Mm-hmm.
So like the top of it is like worthlessness, and the bottom of it is, even worse than that. So, but I hit the bottom. And when I did that, I really started to realize that there had to be something more. There couldn't be another terrible relationship. There couldn't be there couldn't be, this terrible illness, this terrible depression. And so I started to make a change, and I went all around the world finding the healers that could help me with that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What a journey. But what was the trigger point? Was there a moment that you woke up and you said, this is it? Can you pinpoint what?
Yeah, there were a number of them. There were a number of them. One was um, when I couldn't walk more than a block.
Oh,
I
wow.
could In New York City we call it a block. So, I couldn't walk 100 steps. And that was a real point. And I have and the second point was when I got divorced from my, first relationship. I think I was 30 years old when I got a divorce. And that was another one. So one was when I when I could barely walk, and then that one was another one. I knew things had to change in my life. And then guess what? That wasn't the only one. 10 years later, there was another one. 2 years ago, there was another one. But the lessons become less.
Right.
Still painful, but I learned from them quicker.
That's a good way of putting it. As long as we learn, but then we still repeat sometimes the same cycle. But as you said, it becomes quicker. We snap out of it much faster, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we start to build awareness of our beliefs and can start to change them, then we can start to move out of it quicker.
Hmm.
But sometimes we start to be like, why is this happening again? I thought I had healed.
Right.
And you realize that, it's not about healing, it's about changing your mind.
Hmm. All of it. It's all mindset. And what kind of healers did you see? What was the journey like?
I went everybody from Ecuadorian shaman to grandmasters of kung fu,
Oh, wow.
energy healers. Um, I went to Switzerland for the Paracelsus Clinic. I did metaphysical. I did everything from Western to Eastern and all over. So, anybody that said that they were a healer in some way and that someone's like, I went to this guy and I said yes to, and I decided to go.
Incredible. Wow. What a journey. And so that's you talk about this in your book, right? And
I do talk about this in my book, and that's another, I wrote that book, I guess now 8 years ago, and you know, it's almost like I don't recognize who wrote that book because in 8 years you can change so much.
so tell me about the book. Tell us about the book.
Yeah, the book was really a recount of kind of how I was breaking free from this life of pain and suffering. And I really talk about the relationships that I was having and the issues that I was having with my health. And
Mm,
so, I talk about relationships and awareness a lot.
hmm
And the reason why I can talk about relationships and we're not also because of my training, I became a hypnotherapist, I'm NLP practitioner, a lot of training in counseling and social psychology. But the reason why I could talk so specifically about these relationship things, because I've everything that I'm talking about, I've been through.
hmm You've
I've
lived
been
it.
through. I have been addicted to relationships. I've been addicted to a person.
Mm,
I've felt that, you know, that that anxiety, that jealousy, that concern, that worthlessness. And so I can understand when people are feeling that way.
hmm And it applies to almost every single person, right? Like we go through life, and there are relationships that work out and relationships that don't work out, and range of emotions and feelings arising from each one of them. And um, it's fascinating that you've taken all of this and you've kind of went along with the journey and what you're doing right now. So what are you like, are you doing that business right now? What are you doing right now?
Currently, I work with people in groups and individually, so to overcome. I work with a lot of the leading entrepreneurs in America
Mm-hmm.
and allow them to kind of like grow their businesses while growing themselves.
Mm,
So I sometimes I'm called an entrepreneur whisperer because it's really not about business, but I also work with individuals individually to kind of break free from whatever it is. What I found was that there's this realization that none of it's real. Our suffering's not real. Those relationships aren't real. So we find ourselves in these patterns, right? And sometimes, like you said, we have good and bad relationships, but sometimes we just have bad relationships over and over again, the same relationship with a different person. And we're wondering, like, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? Why am I picking these things? And or like the job, or you look at your relationships in general and they're a mess, or you just find yourself in the same pattern over and over again. And we think that it's like think that it's real. Yeah, and that statement probably confuses people. But we feel as though this life and this creation of our reality is the reality
mm-hmm,
instead of us creating the reality. It's
mm-hmm,
called social construction because we create our realities based on our beliefs. And so none of it's real unless we make it real. So as we continue to think that, that this is the way we are, then that's the way we are. And there's this thing called the levels of consciousness. And so the basic level of consciousness is the world is happening to me. I live in this construct of this world and it's happening to me. Like these terrible men or these terrible women are coming and they're narcissists or they're, you know, crazy. It's like we'll either call people crazy or narcissists and just keep having these same thing that can't go on dating apps because I find these terrible people, or like the job doesn't work, or I'm ill, or the world is just beating me down, or I'm lonely, and we feel it's happening to us.
Mm.
And then we start to move our consciousness. If you start to like look at what's really happening, it moves to it's happening for us, right? The idea that, perhaps this is all happening for me so that I can learn. Like I'm not a um, human having a spiritual experience. What if I'm a divine spirit having a human experience? What if I am the manifestation of the universe experiencing itself? And therefore, this is happening for me so I can have the experience, learn and grow. And then you start to think, oh, and this another level of consciousness. What if this is all happening as me? It's happening as me, as if this kind of quantum or the universe is shining a light through me, and it's everything that it's experiencing is just a projection of me, the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't like to accept that because then they're like, okay, but what happened? My mother got cancer. Was that as her?
Mm.
Maybe.
Mm.
Maybe our wars and all that stuff. Maybe that's the consciousness. And so it's hard to grapple with because we don't want to accept that the bad things are our own manifestation as well. But when we start to do and take responsibility as me, this is happening as me, then we can start to see, okay, if that's true, I have some control about changing it. And how do I change as me into the thing that I want most?
Mm.
And that's what gets exciting.
Wow. So these are all really deep, obviously. And to think like that, you have to tap into a different level of consciousness. And how do you get there?
That's true, right? You have to tap into a different level of consciousness. And it's about recognizing and feeling and starting to go and feeling the energy within you. And then it's starting to do a few things to let you know that you are not this reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start to say, are you this reality? Am I this reality? Okay, maybe I'm this human, this bag of blood and bones, which I am partially, but maybe I'm made of energy. Maybe I am the energy of the universe, meaning, there is so much energy. We, as our human eyes, can only see, um, half of 1%, if that, of all the energy flowing around. If we could see all the energy, we'd see everything. It'd be spaghetti, it'd be static. We'd see so much energy around us, between light waves and energy currents, EMFs, PMEFs, all this stuff. And so we can measure it now with tools. So, okay, we're made of energy, but we can't see it. But how do we know it's there? Well, we have this intuition that when we listen to it, we know that something's bigger there.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I was to say to you, while you're listening to my voice, try to hear everything else in the room around you. And as you listen to my voice and try to hear everything else in the room around you, and you look at me and try to see everything else you can see out of your peripheral vision, and you expand your perception, I wonder if you can start to feel your hand on the right side start to tingle. And as you start to feel your hand on the right side start to tingle, I wonder if your hand on your left side starts to tingle.
Mm.
And as you open up your awareness and your hands start to tingle, I wonder if you can recognize that you are so full of energy that you can start to move it around you. That's one way, breaking out, opening your perception, starting to feel the energy with you. The second part is there was a voice in your head that was judging that experience that we just had. But there's also a voice in your head that can recognize that you were judging it. So who is that higher voice?
Wow. So as you were saying that, I actually tried it. I actually tried to see if I can feel all those sensations. And my thought was, are you hypnotizing me?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that part of the hypnosis? Is that like,
I've hypnotized you for the last 5 minutes.
wow, so cool. So
Milton Erickson, Milton Erickson created something called Milton Erickson is a father of hypnosis, and he created, and also I'm not sure if you know Marissa Peer. She's also an incredible master at this. but and Milton Erickson has created Ericksonian hypnosis, which NLP came out of, and he created something called conversational hypnosis, where in a conversation, you can start to put someone into a little bit of a trance. And through that, you can then give suggestions. Like you asked, how do you start to recognize that we're bigger than ourselves? Well, from that explanation that I gave you in that cadence, rhythm, and tempo, I could then give you suggestions that would allow you to recognize that you are, and we did it very quickly, but soon you would have started to feel your entire body tingle.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's how you start to recognize.
yeah, I could totally, like, if you took me through that for like a longer period of time, yeah, I could totally see that, because I really try to pay attention and follow the cues and feel those sensations. And I think this was a very good example, to show us that we live life every day and we go through moments without being conscious. We just go, and we're on autopilot without noticing anything that's going around us, without feeling any of those sensations.
That's a great point.
Right?
That's a great point. Yeah. It's the power of presence when you can actually be present
Yeah.
without all the stuff. That's kind of that's what dropping into a hypnotic state is. It's just being more present, but to something that is not your visual reality.
Yeah.
It's becoming more present to the key essence of you.
Sometimes I feel with your manifestations, you're kind of hypnotizing too, because it actually, like, I feel it through the videos. So tell us about the science behind manifestation.
Oh boy. So the idea of these manifestations, right? And the science of manifestation, I really think that it's not really manifesting something that you want. It's opening your perception to seeing the things that you want to see. Right? Imagine this. It's already and I use this a lot, this analogy now. I thought of it the other day and start using it a lot. Are you familiar with Amazon.com? Some people in Europe are like, Amazon what? But Amazon.com, right? Okay. And so people order from Amazon.com, and in their lifetime, maybe they order 100 products, or like really great shoppers are, ordering 1,000 products, right? Amazon.com has 600 million products available. 600 million. So do you have any clue what those 600 million are? Now, maybe you could, maybe you could conceptualize a million of them, or in your head if you spend time conceptualizing. But does it mean that the other, 599 million are not there? And I feel like manifestation is that same thing, right? Everything exists for us, but our perception and what we can see and grab onto is not wide enough to recognize it until we start to open our perception and start to kind of see what we want to see. Ever buy something and then all of a sudden you see it everywhere? Never seen it before, but someone mentions it, and then all of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere. Or if I tell you to go see to look for a yellow butterfly, you can't remember the last time you saw a yellow butterfly, but I guarantee now, the next time you see a yellow butterfly, probably be very soon, you're going to notice it and be like, oh my God. And that's what manifestation is. It's opening up our focus. So it's removing the blinders, removing the blocks, as opposed to putting something in.
And when you repeat something over and over, you look for it.
Yeah, so affirmations and that kind of thing is, allowing our subconscious mind is always listening, our body's always listening, right? And so the more that we say something, the more we start to reprogram it. And sometimes it's not enough, because the one time when we say, I don't chase, I attract. What's meant for me is coming to me. You say that 5 or 6 times, it takes 2 minutes, and the rest of the time you're like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough. This doesn't, you have to listen to the words you use because it's, I think Bruce Lee said you're casting a spell every time you say a word. It has a vibration and it's being cast. So careful what you say. It's important. So these affirmations, and particularly when you listen to them and repeat them, it starts to make real changes.
100%. When you repeat something over and over, you're reminding yourself of what you are, where you want to be, and hopefully you don't repeat the same patterns. Right?
Yeah. You're just trying to reprogram your subconscious. That's what it's all about. Reprogramming your subconscious mind. And so a lot of people come to me because they're hurting, they're suffering in some way because of a relationship, because of a person, because love, right? And I start talking about this stuff, which is very esoteric and like takes a lot. And they're like, no, I just want to know what to do about, me being jealous, or, like whether they should text me or not, or like whether I should accept someone back after they, and it's, and that is that is the projection, right? So I'll answer that stuff, but in a very practical way. But really, what we want to look at is the light that is shining onto the film that allows that movie to be projected. And that light that shines onto the film that allows the movie to be projected is our belief system, that has been programmed from our parents and our teachers. And they've been programmed, and they've been programmed, and they've been programmed. It goes all the way down to us. There is no, like, you think you programmed yourself, but if between 3 and 9 years old, you've been programmed. And that's okay. But until you break free from that and realize that you've been programmed, you have the same results in love and life and everything. So there's also generational trauma, that could be hundreds of years of trauma that goes in people's genes all the way down. The Greeks know this, Persians know this, Armenians know this, like places with extreme trauma in their history. So we have to start to wake up to that and reprogram it.
Yes. You talked about Greek and Persian. I want to talk about that. We talked about it briefly before online. What do you find from the people and that you see effect of culture in relationships? Because I personally find I can only connect with, not only, but I connect much better with people from the same background, not necessarily Persian, but like Greek, Italian, Latin, because I feel like we understand each other. There is no explanation needed. Does that have effect in our relationships?
Yeah, I really, it comes down to the way that we were programmed, right? And I think that there are natural energies at play, and it's the masculine and feminine energies, right? And it's oftentimes a lot of Europeans, right, which have a different generational trauma, which have a different epigenetics, which have difference, have more of a defined masculine and feminine role. So you can step into your masculine. It's like Italians, forget about it. Always masculine, always macho, and like it's kind of nice, for some people, and not nice for others, right? So whereas in America, there is, the women's lib movement, all the things where people step more into a masculine role, even as the feminine. So I think it definitely plays a role. It definitely plays a role. And that's why oftentimes we feel, when we think like our vibration matches with someone, it's like, oh, they're just of the same culture. And therefore it matches. It matches. So I think that definitely plays a role.
You nailed it. The whole this is a big topic, the masculine, feminine energy, and so many controversies around it, right?
Yeah.
Because I often say, as a strong woman, I still like the man to be stronger than me because I like the masculine energy. And I get attacked when I say that because they're like, oh no, like, like, but I just do. I come from that culture. Like everybody, like I like masculine men. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But
You know,
now I understand it. A lot of it has to do with our upbringing, with our culture, with what we've seen all along.
it's also this misconception of what the masculine and feminine is.
Right.
It's kind of so David Deida wrote The Way of the Spiritual Man, which is basically a roadmap for men to embrace their masculine energy and to understand the feminine energy.
Mm,
And there is this idea, this common misperception that feminine energy is weaker,
mm,
and that the masculine energy is this powerful energy that, you know, overcomes the feminine.
mm.